Justin, Gotham Knights, upcoming game by, is that Rocksteady? The co-op Batman game, but without Batman, with like Robin and, I don't know, Batman characters. Whoever else, Batgirl.
Nightwing.
Isn't that Robin, or am I wrong?
There's two. There's Nightwing, and then there's Robin. I think at one point Robin became Nightwing, and they got another Robin. There's Red Hood, who used to be Robin, Justin, or Nightwing.
I believe you. I definitely believe you that all this stuff happened. Isn't Red Hood, he's got like a mask on that makes him look like...
But Red Hood also used to be, at one point, one of either Robin or Nightwing in the line of confusion, if I added that to it. So...
How do the Teen Titans play into all this?
They were at one point teenagers and they wore tights. Titans.
Did they? I guess they all kind of did, didn't they? Well, maybe not Cyborg.
I was trying to pull,
it's not important.
Make a tights in pun, but
I
don't think it worked out. Cyborg definitely was wearing tights somewhere underneath all that.
Booyah. Anyway, Gotham Knights is not going to have a performance option on consoles, and it's going to run at a hard cap of 30 frames per second. This has been confirmed by executive producer Fleur Marty. She posted on the Gotham Knights like Discord server, like, hey, just so you know, the decision is that due to, quote, the types of features we have in our game, that the game is going to be capped at 30 frames per second. Although things like ray tracing, and I think 4K, or not 4K, but things like ray tracing are not going to have a toggle. They're just going to be on by default. But for that reason, it is locked at 30 frames per second. How do you take that? Again, and to be clear, this is for a game that is coming out exclusively on the PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC.
Oh boy, I'm glad they canceled the PS4 version. What are they, Cyberpunk? You know what I mean? First of all, if this is the case, good on them for canceling those versions to begin with, right? Like, let's just start there. Like, this is clearly something that was problematic in their development cycle, that they flagged it being like, there's no way we can make this game perform the way it needs to on these other consoles. We'll move it back. I'm not bothered by this because I think it is a little concerning, because you'd want it to be running well enough to have like beautiful graphics and beautiful frame rate. It is next gen. But that doesn't stop it from later on getting an update that will optimize it a little bit more. This is probably just one of those things like, well, we could delay it, but like the game's still playable. It's still good. And, you know, this is going to benefit us more to release it now. We'll release an update later, maybe that gives you, a better version of it. It's interesting that they chose to lock the ray tracing performance stuff a little bit, but not really, because they're planning. This is the game we're optimizing right now.
Yep.
Otherwise, they'd have to optimize two versions of it. That just adds more variables, more play testing, more delays, more all this other stuff. When at a certain point, release it, fix the problems, get it to run good once it's released, and then work on it with a smaller team in the background as you're continuing to keep things updated. And one day, maybe it'll be good, and maybe it'll just be like this forever. But
and believe it or not, game development is not about just turning a switch off and then turning a switch on that says 60 frames per second. Like, when you double the amount of frames in a video game, shit gets wacky. Like, it just does. So I think, to be honest, there has been quite a reaction about all of this. I think people are kind of being babies. 30 frames per second is good. You've been playing games at 30 FPS for years and years and years. It is not going to be a problem. I'm sure it's fine. Like, if you're having performance issues at 30 frames per second, then that's when you can start to really make any sort of judgments. But just hearing this game's running at 30 frames per second and has ray tracing on default, is unable to be turned off, I don't think is a huge issue. And like what you just said, like, these sort of like additional performance options being patched into, the current gen games, like, is not unheard of. You look at Spider-Man, you look at all sorts of things that add, what's the other one that Insomniac did? Ratchet and Clank. Like, all sorts of things here, like, are able to, all sorts of games are able to just throw that in there. It's just, I don't think it's the end of the world in the way that everyone else thinks it does. But
no, and like Spider-Man, like bringing that up, Spider-Man, you could not, like, you had to choose, am I going to do 60 frames or have it pretty? And guess what? I still couldn't tell the difference no matter what I did. So you slap it on that 60 frames per second, it looks just as good. You couldn't even tell. But yeah, I think it matters to some, but the thing that matters to everyone is the game playable?
And that's the thing. Is it good? Then it doesn't matter. I mean, in my opinion, at least.
Plague Tale, we just were talking about some of the knocks on it, where it's a very similar game, if not bigger, and performance issues.
Yeah.
So the cleaner you make it at launch, the better the game is going to review. The better the game is going to review, the better the sales are going to be. The better the sales are at the beginning, the more support it will have. The more I get points for my fantasy critic team. You know what I'm saying? I'm so excited. Please give me 15 points or something. Don't be a 70.
I don't think, let me say this. If this game reviews poorly, I think the fact that it runs at only 30 frames per second is going to be a footnote in the review. And, I don't think that it's going to be this is a fucking fantastic game that runs at 30 frames per second, so it's terrible. It's just not how that works. And I think that, people get so caught up in the idea of, a game needing to have a high frame rate in order to be good, because that's just what we're told right now, that I just don't think that's the case.
Yeah, any news on that Switch version of this game? How's that coming?
Yeah, it runs at 10 frames per second.
Oh, that's pretty good for a Switch game.
Sorry, that's in cutscenes.
Got it. Yeah,
yeah right.
Yeah.
Once the game starts, your Switch pulls out a gun and shoots you.